Hey guys, today we're going to talk about the impact of dividends in total returns. Let's go. If you notice the written posts, you'll see that I've changed things up a bit. I've added a headline that says summary. So the intent of that headline is for you to see the posts, the summary of the posts, and save time, because if you don't want to read the whole post, you can check this summary and you will see the main conclusions that I take, and it just saves you time. I've added another headline in the end. It's called action points, and those action points are in effect a way for you to take action on the things that you've read or listened to. So I've added those two, so you can do something with the information and read faster. But let's go to the content. So the summary for today is: dividends reduce risk and return by locking in profits. Also, the bad part of dividends is that they can be taxed, and keeping cash may have opportunity costs and debasement costs. The good part of the dividends is that you are in total control, so profits are locked unless you reinvest them again. Let's talk about the impact of dividend distributions in total returns. We're not going to talk about the short term effects of dividend distribution in stock prices, nor are we going to talk about the risks of chasing high dividends. Dividends are plain net income distributions. In other words, they are not retained. This simple distinction makes all the difference in the future of the two parties, because it shifts control of the money. So the money that the company you have made, it is now yours if it's distributed as a dividend. And what's the impact? The impact of dividend distributions. Let's see the good side and the bad side. When you receive a dividend, there can be good and bad outcomes. On the potential good side, you get to use these double tax, cash. Why double tax? Because it gets taxed on the company's side when the company makes profits, and it gets taxed again, possibly, when you receive the dividend. This, of course, depends on the jurisdiction, but uh, normally it's double taxed at least once. This cash gets taxed, and you get it, and you use it in whatever way you decide. You control the future of this dividend. You choose what to do with it. Your dividend can't be taken away, so you've in effect locked in a return. It's now out of the investing world unless you choose to reinvest it. If you do, it goes back into risk of lost territory again. As a side note, keeping cash has no risk of loss. So if you if you take the cash, for example, the dividend, put it under your mattress, unless your house burns, it has no real risk of loss, or unless it gets stolen. But despite having that safety, that no real risk of loss, it still has risk of debasing. And I made an article about inflation. I've talked several times, and it's a widely covered topic today in many podcasts. So I guess you are already up to date with that. So debasing risk is real, and having cash has that debasement risk. You may choose to spend this dividend and still keep the bulk of your money invested, or allocate the capital better than the company that distributed it. Now, the bad side. Firstly, generally, as I've said, there's immediate taxation implications. When you receive the cash, the government takes a cut. The second potential bad side of a distribution is that the money is not being reinvested, which is what you want in a growth company, for example. In some companies or investing strategies, it doesn't really matter anyway. For example, I'd say one of the most extreme examples is for example, a coal company that is set to close in 5 years. They may choose to distribute all the cash flows, because instead of buying more plants, because um, their contract in this example is set to end in 5 years. The plants will shut down, the assets will be sold, the company will be liquidated. So it doesn't make sense to reinvest the money, and it makes all the sense to distribute the profits as dividends to shareholders. um, the other side of this example is, for example, an Alphabet or a Facebook. Because they have a long runway ahead, it makes sense for them to reinvest the profits. Um, because um, unless you are a very good capital allocator, they will, in general, make better investments than you, and the return on capital will be better than what we can do by ourselves. And that's why we invest in those companies. But if the company is able to reinvest the profits, like we were just talking about, at desired returns on capital, it's clearly better not to distribute the cash. It prevents tax dollars from going to the government, and they keep them in the business instead. Of course, this doesn't apply to every type of reinvestment. For example, if you hire some talent, some people for your company, it goes directly to the expenses, and in that case, it prevents the dollars from being taxed. But if you, for example, buy some property, plant, equipment, um, you are doing it with profits, so it will only be expensed in the income statement when it will only be expensed when the depreciation kicks in. So to choose or not to choose dividends, it really depends. Do you want the risk or do you want the return? And the dividend being distributed or not has, of course, an impact on your portfolio. Um, so, what does this mean in risk terms? It means that receiving a dividend diminishes your risk of return on invested capital because you are locking in profits, but it also diminishes future potential future returns, because if the company was reinvesting the profits, it was compounding your returns. If you reinvest the distributed profit better than the company that distributed it, you are not locking in profits, but it may be even better than the company that you are investing in, reinvesting those profits. Because if you do it better than the company, then um, to get the dividend, the taxed dividend, um, and reinvest it yourself, it may be even better. My point is, reinvesting perpetuates risk. And the very moment that the company reinvests or doesn't distribute your part of the profits, you may never see it again. This is because they have the freedom to do whatever they want with it. Uh, just because the company had some net profits, it doesn't mean that those profits are locked in if it is kept inside the company. This is particularly concerning for net companies. For example, let's say a company has um, a cash position of 1 billion, um, and you are looking to buy it for whatever reason, but that cash may be invested in things that won't get any return. So that 1 billion is cash today, but as soon as you buy it, it may not be cash anymore. So um, if the company isn't distributing it, it's at risk for sure, because unless you have a controlling stake of the company, you won't be able to lock in that cash. Um, a dollar reinvested may be a dollar burnt. It doesn't necessarily compound. So in sum, You may end up worse with reinvested profits than with the dividend in your hand. Let's end with the action points. I'll leave you with a few questions for you to put your portfolio to the test. The first one is, what companies in my portfolio are distributing dividends and why? The second one is, am I being taxed on dividends? If so, is paying the government a part of my profit worth it? The third one is, are net profits better in my hand or with the company? The fourth one and last one is, would I rather compound my money instead of having that money as a dividend? And that's it for today, guys. If you like the content, you know already, you should subscribe. And we'll see you next week.